Okay, they are Martin, Johnny, Gustavo, and Luis. I have decided to prepare this video for you, so you will kind of oversee the kind of work that we are supposed to continue working and the one that in a way was supposed to be done. I'm going to use here a project that I directed that is called Collaborative Learning Teams and a Strategy to Foster Self-Directed Language Learning. What I want to do is kind of compare what you sent me today and what we have to actually work on. So once we have this, let's say that for the moment you have a wonderful topic, effects of self-assessment in improving language to oral production through the use of video speech drafts. Might be redefined, but anyway it's an important let's say document and an important title, and I think it's very interesting. Initially, I want you to see the format that you have to send. So in some minutes in an email, I will be sending you this. So the plan is that you start having your document. So little by little, we'll start having like the body of the document, right? So let's say that the first pages is nothing. It's probably something that you will be doing just at the end. But anyway, you know that they have to be written. The abstract is going to be something that we will write at the end when the project is already carried out. And there is where I have a lot of questions. We need to start developing the table of contents with the sections that we can see here: an introduction, the theoretical framework, the research design, pedagogical intervention and implementation, results and data analysis, conclusions, pedagogical implications, limitations, further research, references, and appendixes, plus table of figures, table of tables, and a list of abbreviations that is going to facilitate readers, facilitate that readers can understand your paper. Introduction, allow me to tell you that in this moment I didn't read your introduction because this is the part that we generally write at the end of the paper once we have all the information that we need for the paper. But anyway, as I'm telling you, there must be something that is mentioned in this introduction, that is that this project responds to a need in our context, and our context is Colombia, and our context is our schools. So the information that you might find that comes from the Ministry of Education, that comes from a bilingualism project, or this kind of national information is going to be valid. Of course, as these people have here, they talk about collaborative learning. You will be talking about speaking production, but about the strategy that you are implementing. In this moment, speaking, let's say that is important, but the one that is more important is going to be the issue of self-assessment, because that is the strategy you are actually implementing. As you can see, and you will read in one of the comments, the idea is that this introduction will have everything connected. So as you can see, it's not a separate section, but it's something that we have as part of the paragraph and as part of the test. So as you can see, we have the question and we have the objectives. Regarding the question, let's say that well, I think that we are open to options. What I want you to define in the question is what speaking proficiency means for the project. When you mention methodological and systematically analysis, what exactly it means. So beautiful words, but for the moment they are with no information. So we need to actually define them. And the issue of the self-evaluation needs to be very clear in our project. This part about the orientation of a teacher is not, let's say, that is obvious, so we don't need to include it here. So I think that you can continue playing with the can students or how might or what are. This is a different issue talking about perceptions. So it's important that you understand that every single word that is written in the research question has to be part of the project. Coming back to this, as you can see, the question is collaborative learning teams. So there will be a section in the theoretical framework dedicated to collaborative learning teams. There is the second keyword is self-directed learning. So again, it has to be a section there. And increased motivation, again, is a section that has to be in the theoretical framework. So considering what I have said, we have to define speaking proficiency for the program. We have to define this issue of self-assessment, the issue that you mentioned before, self-direction, self-management, self-regulation, what is the correct word that we want to use, and finally the one about using technology in ICT, in ELT. So it's going to be important that we include that factor here. Okay, depending on the question, the objectives might vary. So the most important is that you understand that these objectives have to be really related to what you are stating in the question. Continuing with my paper, let's say that we have to identify, to validate, to compare, because if we kind of mention these verbs that have to be like verbs that collect evidence, so let's say that we have to think about the verbs, what we actually want to do, so those are the verbs that will be used in the paper. A section that probably you are working in is the theoretical framework, is not in your paper. So you immediately go to the research design, but you don't have the section theoretical framework. And it's very important that you develop this section, as I told you, with the 3 or 4 aspects that are mentioned in the questions. I repeat again, self-assessment, because that is the strategy that you are implementing. Speaking performance, but exactly the definition of what speaking means and what part of that will you consider. The use of technology, in this case is videos, and as an opportunity, a learning tool to support students, and the fact that you want in a way to motivate the students to become more autonomous when they actually self-assess their papers. As you are doing, I guess that you understand that you are taking certain authors, and those are the ones that will help us construct and define our ideas. So it's very important to start thinking about the definitions that you will be using for the paper. For this study purpose, the difference of groups and teams is defined, blah, blah, blah. So we have to take certain definitions, but for the paper, we are going to use it. In this study, a team is defined. That's what you have to do. In your study, self-assessment is defined as. In my study, speaking performance is equals to. That's what you have to start doing. As you can see, this is a section of probably 10 pages. So we need a lot of good theoretical background. I'm still worried because in your paper, the references that we have so far is only 3, and all of them regarding research, nothing regarding the theory that you included there. But I'm certain that you have those documents. So let's say, for example, here when we define this one, let's say that we have certain authors that actually we take the definitions from. Motivation in this case, because that's something that they included in the research question, and this is it. The research designed. Once we have the research question and the objectives, we have to actually see what would be the best methodology we want to test. It seems that you just took it because everybody takes it. That is action research. The question is, we need to validate that this is exactly what you want to do, and you have to connect this with your study. It's not just copying what Noonan says or what Bailey says, but it's just talking about and explaining. This research is developed under the action research approach because, and we have to support it. So far, this is a section, the context, something that you can also do. So far, there is no information about the schools. There is no information about the number of students you are working with. So that's something that we actually need, a full description of your participants. And this is going to be part of the needs analysis that I am talking in my feedback. So this is the time for us to start writing and having similar tables in which ones we will call school 1, school 2, 3, and 4, the number of participants that we will have, so we can actually kind of design the profile of the participants that will be part of the study. In this moment you have some instruments. Again, I think that you took them because probably most of people have used them, but are these the ones that we want to actually use? So the first one is a diagnostic test. It is not a pre-test, it's the diagnostic language test. That's part of the instruments, because the plan is that at the end you will actually apply the same instrument. So it actually requires a full definition of what kind of exam was this one, what kind of results did you get, how did you apply it, and we have to make sure that everybody did exactly the same. Since we have 4 researchers, all of you guys, Johnny, Luis, Gabriel, Gustavo, and Martin, they have to apply the same test, and we have to see the results for students starting. So at the end we can apply exactly the same. What I don't see here is how the diagnostic test was applied. I don't see the results, so probably this is part of the draft that you are sending me. The journals, I see that the journals in a way, okay, 1 second before this. When we describe the questionnaires or the students' learning diaries, we need to support what kind of information we actually want to gather from the students. And when you send people to the appendix, is because they are actually related to the topic. For example, these questions, we must revise them, need to be related to the issue of self-assessment, to the issue of speaking performance. So we need to guide students so they can actually evaluate their speaking performance in the terms that you actually want to say. So that's why the speaking performance should be defined in the theoretical framework, because this is going to be very broad information that will probably give us some other information that we don't need and we won't know how to use it. Same as the teacher's journal, so we need to have a format. I will show you, let me scroll down. For example, this study selected a strategy of collaborative learning as the strategy to solve problems. So that's why they have in this first instrument information about collaborative learning. They also have an issue about autonomy, and they also have an issue about motivation and self-confidence in language learning. Same thing will be, for example, in the observations or in the interview protocol, another instrument they use, collaborative learning, motivation, and self-directed language learning. So this is something that is called triangulation, because we can see that the instruments are actually asking for the same information we actually need. So I would like to see that the class observation, let's say protocol, is actually observing what you have to observe, because if you are going to observe discipline or something like that, it won't be valid. Okay, so the plan, guys, I will give you some instructions what you have to do. You are 4 guys, so this is the time to split work. I can only see 4 pages, and I sincerely hope, expected something more, considering the time that we stop communicating and the time that probably you could have work. So I will assign certain work to some of you. So the plan is that based on this, we can start having the next encounter, okay?